So let's say your objective is to learn a matchup and gain character knowledge at the same time. So I'll use in reference how I've learned with Hwoarang. So when I was still starting off with Tekken 7 and I made the swap from Jin to Hwoarang, basically this is the one thing you mainly need to do, and that's play the game. Because even if you aren't labbing, you're still gonna learn a lot from simply playing. If you take those experiences into your body, if that makes sense, right? Like you're learning as you fight. You're so essentially like a Saiyan, right? You need to feel and play the game in order to know how to adjust and how to counter or how to do certain stuff, whether that be offense, defense, neutral, this setup, this frame trap, etc., etc. How to do this thing when I'm in Y thing, etc., 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 etc. So yeah, and then after that, you add the labbing one. You add the lab work. The lab work is super important. I can't stress enough the lab work, but I've seen a lot of really good players go by without intense lab work. Now you add the lab work afterwards, and then even discussions. Discussions aren't necessarily lab work. They technically are, but since you're not in practice mode, you're not necessarily labbing. You're talking about the game, and that will, what do you call this? Change your perspective or open up new things for you to lab or test in-game or at the lab. Like, okay, let's say someone tells you, if you leave the frames in the air, your opponent reacts differently and you have more openings. You're like, wait a minute, but that's not frame trapping, right? Because I'm giving up my frames. And you don't fully understand it yet. You get what he told you, but you don't get it because it doesn't feel as effective based on, again, the experiences you have playing the game, right? So you set out to start doing it. So you experiment in practice mode. If I leave this +7, what can the opponent do, let's say, if I delay for a half second? What can I do, right, if that happens? And then you bring that to the game. And then you notice, you check how certain opponents react to this, that exact situation. And you'll be like, okay. So sometimes it might go well for you, and sometimes it doesn't go well for you. You're always gonna find an opponent who's eventually just gonna stop there and be like, I'm just gonna wait, you know? And then sometimes, you let's say you hear someone who says, oh, waiting's better than, what do you call that? Attempting to initiate offense, or like trying to change the pace, because you're just waiting for your opponent and you're just here and there. And you're like, yeah, it sounds okay, yeah. Are there any downsides to it? Yes, there are plenty. Well, it's like connecting the knowledge. Connecting the knowledge and the experience together is the main thing. And depending on how you learn, one is gonna be stronger than the other. Like you're gonna be more influenced by this thing over that thing. So like even if, let's say you're more on the knowledge side, like if someone tells you, hey, that's punishable by this move, you can do this punish. You'll be like, okay, cool. And then you just start doing it in-game because you just told it. And let's say you're the one who experiences more through playing, then if someone tells you that exact same sentence, that, hey, it's punishable by this thing, you're like, okay, cool. And then you do the suboptimal punish of it because that's what you're used to punishing it with. And eventually, as you get by, you recognize that move and you're like, you remember at the back of your head, like, okay, I'm gonna now consciously tell myself to punish it this way. And then boom, you start punishing it that way. And then now you can mix and match it. And then you're gonna do it depending on how your opponent is reacting to said punishes. If you want them, if it knocks down, if it keeps them standing. Like it's like really, really big. And playing the game is the one that really connects it all together. Round one. So if you're losing mainly because you don't know the matchup, it's because you need to do the lab work. Or you need to experience playing against the matchup more and more. Right? One of those two things. So it's completely possible for everyone. Bobo. I'm alive! Never mind! I'm alive! I'm alive! I gave up halfway and then the game said, here's a chance. That's why you should never give up on the play until your life bar is 0.